We are Sun Tours. We're a Blackfeet interpretive tour company in Blackfeet country. It extends into Glacier National Park in Montana. Right now we are in our headquarters building in East Glacier, which is on the east side of Glacier National Park on the Blackfeet Reservation.
For many years, we have existed here as Blackfeet, and where we are today is on the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, right under what we call the backbone, Mokakin, of the mountains, in the shadow of the Rockies, the Northern Rockies. And so we are here in our headquarters of Sun Tours that I started in 1992 with the intention of establishing a native interpretive tour company to represent our tribe in its homeland that has been here for thousands of years. That was non-existent in the tour companies that were here. When I started my company, I started with my first cousin and one of my classmates. And so we've always had the connection of family. And it's a great pleasure for me to be able to work with my son, my other son, my two sons. My daughter has worked with us before.
I was probably like 12 and got roped into washing a bus. It changed for me when I left and went to school and came back, and I studied business, and I grew up with two entrepreneurial parents. So I think that I just kind of had that undertaking to hustle a little bit, and so there was an opportunity to work under my dad, who started the company, and that's kind of what started it for me. For a lot of people, it's their first time here. And so we always like to welcome people to this area, to the mountains, and kind of explain what that means as you're going into the national park. A lot of people recognize this area as Big Sky Country, right? And you can see in a full panorama around you. And when you're out on the plains, that's really obvious. As you get closer and closer to the mountains, you have this extreme switch of elevation, and the landscape totally changes. So that first stop that we do on tour usually just blows people away, because you go from one extreme to another. It's powerful, and that's what we talk about on tour and what we've recognized as our connection here to everything that's here, but the mountains play such a large role in that. And you can feel that power when you step off the bus. You're on the side of the road and you have these enormous rocks towering above you, over 10,000 feet. Our band that's down here is what we call the Amskapi Pikani, the Southern Pagan, because we were the southernmost part of that tribe. So each band has a different name, but part of what connected us, it was the language itself, what we call Blackfoot. Because you have a lot of elevation gain when you're going up into the mountains and you're going up to what they call the Continental Divide, it's like you get closer and closer to the sun, right? The sun in our language is Natusi, and it's kind of like without the sun nothing can live, right? And part of our philosophy of life was that we recognize the sun and our creator as kind of two sides to the same coin. Going to the Sun Mountain has a different meaning for us because it reestablishes, every time we travel into the mountains as the snow melts, a greater connection with what we call our creator. And because it's like you're going into this abundant land that provided everything for us. Being here and seeing the community that's here and understanding that kind of in a first-hand way really can be a profound experience for a lot of people that we take on tour as we go across the reservation before we get into the national park, and understanding the dynamic of where we are today versus where we used to be, and that connection that is separated by landscapes that we crossed over traditionally from the flatland into the mountains. Every now and then we have, guests that are from Montana, and a lot of people, even when you're from here, non-native or non-Blackfeet people don't understand the connection that we have to the park. And so that is really vital to being able to share what it means to be here, not just on the reservation, but our connection that extends across the border into the park.
We're starting our 30th season this year. I had a vision to to start a company that would reflect that part of history that was overlooked. And so there was always in our interpretation of history that was vacant from anything taught or shared with the traveling public through the National Park Service. And I had a big obstacle to convince the National Park Service to allow us to do this. The battle ensued to get a permit, and they said, well, it's worth exploring, and we'll hire you as a bus driver, and you could tell your story driving one of our buses. And I said, well, I'm not really interested in that. I'm starting a bus company that we're touring on reservation lands, and we're touring into Canada, and we're going to be touring into the national park. So you got to find a way to accommodate me. And so we had negotiations with the Park Service and the Tribal Council representatives and the Glacier Park Incorporated, and we weren't really getting anywhere. And so my constituents and the representation of the Blackfeet Tribal Business Council said, well, this is not right because we don't feel this is a fair opportunity for an entrepreneur to start a business. We held a big protest in front of the lodge at the start of summer, and we alleged that it was unfair treatment to the Blackfeet, and it was unfair treatment of our recognition of our treaty rights. And so we started negotiations further to accomplish a way to be a tour operator in the national park. But we were fined, we were issued citations, and we appealed them as a business going forward. We made the argument that we had the right to provide an income, a business opportunity for my family to arrive at income in a modern world, as other concessionaires were doing. And so by the time our court case came up, we had already been granted permission under a contract with the Department of the Interior, the National Park Service. I guess it's my hopes that as a business owner and a resident of this land in this community, that I would really like to see other entrepreneurs do similar things that I have done, that provides an income for a staff of people that are all part of our community, that money goes back into our community. And so I would like to see the future of other entrepreneurs utilize the Native Act, Native American tourism, improving visitor experience. And my goal is to get every child in Blackfeet schools on a sun tour and educate them about our history.
It has been Sun Tours' mission to educate and inspire all to a higher respect, appreciation, and understanding of the Blackfeet world.